welcome Andy.
Wow, that sounded like way more people that are actually in this room. That was fantastic. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you guys for coming to this presentation. I know the idea of behaviorism and economics in your business may sound a little daunting, and it sounded a bit scientific, but it's going to be fun, and my hope for this presentation is going to be hands-on. By trade, I'm a board-certified behavior analyst, and as John mentioned, I'm the clinical director at a developmental disability agency. We employ about 300 and something individuals to work with about 700 local families of individuals with behavioral disorders. So by trade, what I study is called applied behavior analysis, and that's a scientific field that seeks to understand individuals' behaviors in socially significant ways so it can be changed and eventually predicted for the right outcomes. So we work towards changing, predicting behavior. And we're going to compare and contrast that today with classical economics, which takes economic agents, people, groups, communities, and how they consume goods and maximize utility, and how we can take that rational thinking of consumers and be able to make predictive models, how we can come up with laws like supply and demand. But we run into a problem. Is anybody in here a rational consumer? Does anybody in here behave rationally? I do not. I ate breakfast at a gas station today, which I think makes 4 days this week. I know better than that. It's not in my budget. It's bad for me. It's irrational behavior. I know better. But I still do it. As an economic agent trying to maximize utility and benefit, I'm not acting rationally. And I bet you guys don't act rationally either, nor do your consumers. So my hope is over the next 40 minutes, we're going to talk about the psychology of your consumers. We're going to talk about how you can work with them, understand them, and better serve them. So the convergence of behaviorism and classical economics, we get what's called behavioral economics, which studies the psychological, cognitive, emotional, cultural, and social, and all these factors, and how they come into decision making, and how we can then use that irrational stuff to come up with better predictive models, to better understand our customers, to better serve them, and to make it easier for them to spend money with you. Behavioral economics is primarily concerned with the bounds of rationality of these economic agents. Now that may sound like, well, okay, some of my customers are quirky. Is it really that bad of a problem that they're not rational? Yes, because it makes your predictive models difficult, and it can have some serious effects. The example I have here is from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life, but in there he talks about, this is a for real case study, out of 100 people that are sick, they want help, they go to the doctor diagnoses them and writes them a prescription. A third of them don't even go fill that prescription. Irrational behavior. Of the third that's left, half of them, or 1/3 of the total population, don't take the prescription correctly. They don't follow their prescription regimen, they don't take all the pills, they don't do it right, leaving only 1/3 of the people to actually receive the medical help that they were seeking. You can assume that the same problem is going to exist for people who have received organ transplants, that have had weight loss surgery, or even had heart attacks. We know better, and we still act irrationally. Where this really gets confusing, where this really gets irrational, is if it's your pet, you'll go pick those medicine up. You'll pick up the medicine. You'll make sure that regimen is followed. When it's your sick dog, when it's your health, we're not rational. So today we're going to dive into that. What do we do about this? And hopefully at the end, take a whack at how we can solve this problem. So when we do that, I want to make sure we're taking a behavior analytic approach to the motivation of your customers. In ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis, we talk about motivation in 2 ways. First off, the value altering effect. How the value of something changes your motivation, but more specifically, how does it change your behavior or your customer's behavior? So today, as we're talking, as we're sharing these ideas, I don't want you to think merely, how can you add value to the market? How are you bringing value to your customers? but how are you evoking change in them? It doesn't matter if they think you're great if they don't get out their credit card. It doesn't matter if they know that you're good if they don't stop at your store. It doesn't matter how user-friendly your website is if they don't use it. So what can we do to better understand their thinking? How can you add value and then get them to change that behavior? The second thing I want to make sure that we're thinking about is something Ryan brought up at our lunch forum yesterday, and that was, as businesses, we're looking at the external things, the goods we're selling our customers, without looking at what are the intrinsic values. People aren't necessarily coming to us for the widget. They're coming to us for the need, for the hole in our life that widget is going to fill. So be thinking of that as we go over these. So we're going to be talking about three principles of behavioral economics today. One is heuristics, the second is framing, and the third is going to be nudging. And I'm hoping we can spend about 10 minutes on each of those. Before this presentation started, I asked 4 audience members to come up here. As we're talking about these, we want to dissect their businesses, look at their customers, and how can we apply these principles of behavior economics to them. So we're going to watch a short video on the first one, heuristics, and then I'm going to have these 4 people come up, introduce what their business is, and we're going to apply this stuff. Can you go to video number 1 for us?
Every day you make decisions and judgments. Sometimes you're able to think about them carefully, but other times you make them on the fly using little information. This is where heuristics come in. Heuristics are straightforward rules of thumb that we develop based on our past experiences. They're cognitive tools that help us make quick decisions or judgments. Life would be exhausting if we had to deliberate over every one of the hundreds of choices we make every day. So instead, we use our heuristics as shortcuts to make judgments about the world around us. For example, rather than spending time deciding what to wear every day, you might have some default outfits. Or when faced with a lunch menu with too many options, you may opt for what you've enjoyed in the past. Heuristics aren't about making the perfect decision or judgment, just about making one quickly. Heuristics play a role in our reasoning about the broader world, too. As an example, consider the rate of violence in the world over the past century. Is the world more or less violent in the past 20 years than previously? Heuristic reasoning might lead us to think that the world is more violent today than it has been in the past. Every day, we're confronted with images of tragedy in the news and on social media. We might reasonably assume that the world is more violent today than ever before using what's called an availability heuristic. That is, examples of violence that are so readily available, we just naturally assume the world is more violent today. But in fact, the world is more peaceful today than ever before in human history. We may hear a lot about violent events, but in terms of raw numbers, fewer people die today at the hands of other human beings than ever before. So that heuristic about how violent the world is incorrect. In fact, a slew of other heuristics can easily lead us to mistaken conclusions. And it doesn't matter how smart or well-educated you are. Anyone can place too much trust in the mental shortcuts they use to make sense of the world. Take this example. Let's say a person tests positive for a rare disease, one that only 1 in 1,000 people have. What is the likelihood that he actually has the disease? Most of us would say the likelihood is very high based on the test results alone. But what if the results were inaccurate 10% of the time? If the false positive rate is 10%, a common number in medical tests, then it is highly unlikely our patient has the disease. In fact, based on the prevalence of the disease and the test result, we can be 99% sure he doesn't have the disease. This is because the odds of getting a false positive result, 1 in 10, are much higher than the odds of actually having the disease, 1 in 1,000. But in multiple studies, physicians routinely get this wrong, overestimating the likelihood that their patient actually has the disease. Psychologists call this the representativeness heuristic. People assume an individual case is more representative than it actually is. Our political views can especially suffer from an over-reliance on heuristics. Just consider how we deal with political issues. We'll often let our political identities and our heuristics about how right we think they are stand in lieu of important details and information we need to have an informed viewpoint. Because our heuristics can so easily lead us to faulty conclusions, it's important to be humble about our views. In light of our fallibility, we have to do something that doesn't come easy. we must recognize that the world is an uncertain place and that our judgments about it are often wrong. We ought to listen to opinions we may initially consider wrong or even offensive. Our intuitions are useful, even necessary when it comes to making quick judgments about the world, but that doesn't mean they're correct. Recognizing the flawed nature of your thinking is a bold first step to challenging it.
Perfect. So we can have our 4 volunteers come up here and briefly introduce yourselves. Oh, let me grab the microphone.
Dun dun dun.
Okay, we'll start here. Okay, yeah. Let's start with the ladies. And actually, let me have you guys stand to the side here real quick so people are trying to look through you for the screen. Just your name, what kind of industry are you in? And we want to talk about some industry-specific problems that you guys may be facing. Because who else watched that and thought, yeah, that's right, my customers need to have an open mind. That's right, my customers need to understand this better. Well, yes, but what are we going to do about it? So we want your name and what industry you're in, and let's talk about maybe some of these mental shortcuts, some of these heuristics that your customers may have.
Well, my name is Leila Abrahamson. I work at the Fort Hall Casino, which is now going to be the Bannock Casino Hotel. And I would hope that my guests mostly are irrational thinkers. They come here, they enjoy themselves, they spend money, and most of their behaviors is because gambling money is kind of like a thoughtless process. They don't really think about it. They just do it.
Because rationally, the lottery or gambling may not make sense.
Your odds are in that 1 to 1,000.
Sure. Let's talk about the community at large here for a second, though. What are some mental shortcuts or assumptions that our community may be making about that casino? What are some assumptions we make?
Some of the assumptions that I always get, so I'm the director of player development, so obviously I develop new gamers and gamblers and people enjoying their time. Some of the common misconceptions we get is that we put people in debt, that we don't have any type of, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you spent all your money, where really we have to be just as aware of behaviors and knowing our guests more so, that we feel comfortable. So as the director, I tell my staff, if people tell you they need a break or that they've spent their money or their resources or their incomes, then we will give them the opportunity to sign themselves out. So that's a common misconception, is that we take everybody's money, we don't care about the person, their lives, or anything that's going on, but really that's not true. We actually are people and we understand people, so.
Perfect, and I'm hoping over the next half hour we can dive in a little bit deeper to what's going on there. Okay, next one.
My name is Bo James, and I'm a subcontractor for Journeys, actually. So I'm the vocational specialist, and what I do is I help people with disabilities, which can be anything from anxiety to Down syndrome, find meaningful employment and then be successful in jobs. So just misconceptions in the industry that when you hear disability, you hear inability. And that's not necessarily always the case, because we don't just willy-nilly put people in jobs. We find them meaningful employment for the employer as well. So.
Perfect.
I'm Heath Edwards. I'm with Weedman Lawn Care. We service lawns for weeds, fertilize and make them green, keep pests and bugs out of your house. Common misconception we have is one application of weed control will keep the weeds away forever, or that if I spray for spider sprays in the spring, they'll never come in their house. So those are kind of some misconceptions people have. And yellow is like a red for a bull for a homeowner, and I totally understand. If you see dandelions in the lawn, they call us first, right?
Perfect.
I'm Claudine Judy. With my husband, we own Tobin Restoration, which we do fire, water, mold restoration in homes. So our customers are calling us usually in a panic. I would think that mostly irrational, not sure what to do. Our biggest thing with marketing is just trying to be top of mind when disaster strikes, and sometimes that's a little hard. misconception is that you call your insurance company and they tell you who you have to use, and that's not the case. We work for all insurance companies, so we try to let people know that there are specific programs. We are pretty much involved in all those programs, but anyway, people think that they have to call the 1-800 number and only use who their insurance says.
Perfect. Those are great. So we're going to be looking at these businesses and thinking about, like, how does this stuff apply to them? And more importantly, I want you to be writing notes on how does this apply to you? So the first heuristic, so again, the definition of heuristics, this is that the cost of searching exceeds the benefit of finding the greatest or the perfect value, as we learned about in that classic economical model. So we create these mental shortcuts. We have rules of thumb to find a solution that's good enough. I'm driving home today. I need to grab a quick burger somewhere right off the freeway. Where am I going to eat? Where do you eat when you need a quick burger? McDonald's. We just eat at McDonald's. McDonald's became this like default answer for a quick burger. You guys are working on becoming the default answer for a restoration company. But so often we're thinking about what is top of mind. And I know a lot of you guys are here as working with social media, working with companies, with their websites, with their social media presence to be top of mind, to be the one that we go to first. Because first on Google means they've got to be the best. The first one that comes to mind means it's got to be the best. Does McDonald's have the best burger? No, but they've got some really effective marketing. The next thing we have on here is so let's actually go back. So what's some of the availability bias we may have about some of these things? For me, I was so thrilled when somebody at the casino volunteered, because when I think of casinos, what do I think about? Losing money, drinking, and smoking. Those are three things I don't do. I don't fit in at your casino. I don't drink or smoke. What's wrong with my availability bias here? Can I drink and smoke in your casino even if I wanted to? I can't drink there or smoke there anyway. But I don't know that. What I saw in the movies isn't what you guys do every day. So we've got a problem. We've got a discrepancy here. You mentioned, like, for the availability, what comes to mind when I think of, I got a weed spray? I'm done. Right? Yeah. For Bo, with the availability bias of, I know a guy with a disability that would be great in your business. In your mind right now, what does that person look like? What's their disability? And what are the odds that that's going to match the person that Bo has in mind for you? I promise the person in your mind has a more severe disability. The next thing we have here is a representative bias. And that's that in our mind we have these prototypes. We have what we think it looks like, these stereotypes that we run off of. I'm going to embarrass Lori back there in the back. I was with her husband the other day. We're driving around at lunchtime thinking, we need some street tacos. We have mental prototypes of the kind of place that has the best tacos. In your mind, what does that place look like? Right? Is it a great sit-down restaurant? Heck no, right? It's a taco bus. And what are some characteristics of that taco bus? What? It's small, a little bit sketchy. Right? I don't expect maybe good communication. It may not be really clean. There may not even be a place for me to sit down. And so we are on our phones, we pulled over, are on our phones looking for a place that we could barely pronounce, that had no menu items in English, and that was what looked like a run-down old taco bus. And we found a perfect one. And it fit our prototype. We weren't disappointed, but we had these prototypes as representativeness of what we needed it to look like. How about for you guys? What are some maybe mental prototypes or ideas that people have, some preconceived notions that some people have about your businesses, about what they need to look like?
That we need to look like Vegas.
Yes!
Ours is, you guys don't offer everything that Vegas or Jackpot or Wendover offers. Well, guess what? We have different gaming regulations and compacts with the states that restrict us from that. And so we're going towards that for a future for any of you guys about the new casino. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a lot with our old building. A misconception is that it's unsafe, it's dark, it's old, it stinks. I'll agree that it stinks, but
You heard it here.
But a lot of, another thing is the guests that come. You're talking about drinking, smoking. People assume with casinos we have alcoholics, drug dealers, smoking people who don't care, rude service, and really it's not. It's kind of a different experience if you went into the gaming, like, we offer free coffee and pop to anybody who walks in. We have security who are very well trained. We have also, with our security, they come from BIA backgrounds, which is Bureau of Indian Affairs. They have to go to a police academy in order to be considered for those positions, so they know how to protect and serve. Is that we will always have bad people, I think is the common misconception, just because whenever it's something that's tribally regulated with our local newspapers, we're not the first people who get to respond to these things. I don't know if anybody really realized that we have a public affairs, but sometimes word through social media spreads way faster and it can get crazier and bigger, but we're here to try to make that change. And so all of those all in one, I'm pretty sure you guys are like, well, you missed this one and this one and this one. But major, those ones are the common misconceptions that we deal with regularly.
So as you're thinking about these mental prototypes that your customers may have about your business or your industry, are you seeing an opportunity for marketing? Are you seeing an opportunity for clearing that up? For differentiating yourself? For standing out? For being different? When we take a minute to look at what do I look like from my customer standpoint, what's the rule of thumb for coming to my business? And how can I open them up to something bigger, something better? So the Amos and Trabowski, the heads of the pioneers of behavioral economics, tested this representative bias by asking what they called the Linda case study. And they posed this question to college students, and it said, so Linda is 31 years old, she's single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. And I asked them the simple question, knowing that, which is most likely? A, that Linda is a bank teller, or B, Linda is a bank teller and active in the feminist movement. Think for a moment. Which one would you pick? B. No! How is that more likely? Let me ask you again, which one is more likely? That she's just a bank teller.
Because you put all the other limiting factors on by saying N is active in the feminine, that shrinks your odds.
Yes, by adding an and here, it shrinks the odds. But what did we do? I was given information, I stuck it in a box, and this is what that box looked like. It's easy to jump to these conclusions. And your customers are doing the same thing. They're assuming things because you're a casino, you're also this. You're a restoration company, you're also expensive. You're a weed person, your guys are going to come to my house and they're going to do this. I'm making other assumptions. Let me encourage you to take a moment and think about what are the ands that your customers are looking at. What is the also that they're assuming about your business? Again, what a great marketing opportunity. The next thing we have here is a base rate bias. As consumers, we don't always have a time to figure out what's a good deal. And lots of businesses appeal to this. Anybody ever go buy a mattress? Were you not surprised? Wasn't it thrilling when you walked into the mattress store, they were having a sale that day? Has anybody in the history of consumerism, of capitalism, ever paid retail for a mattress? No. Does anybody pay MSRP for a car? No. Does anybody pay full retail price for furniture anymore? No. Right? But we still have those prices, these price anchors, a suggested retail price. We also have some kind of like default answers and other things that we do where we look to, this is probably the way it should go. As with an election coming up, who do we just assume is going to win? Who's our default answer? Here in Idaho, it's the conservative choice, right? And that's just kind of from there. So we don't ask who's going to win, but by how much, and is anybody going to disrupt the trend? We have a base rate. I'm curious, what are maybe some base rate biases that your customers may have? Maybe something where they have like an anchor point before they get to you. Heath, do you have one?
Is this on? One of the biggest ones we hear is Weedman's a national franchise, and so we're more expensive than our local competitions. That's one of the biggest ones. The other one we hear is our weed control kills lawns, so it must be poisonous for dogs, which it's not. So.
Also, another problem you have is, what does it cost me to fertilize my lawn if I go to Home Depot and do it myself?
Same price as if we do it.
It actually does. Like, go support Weedman. They're really affordable by the time you have to go do it yourself. But that's my base rate price is, what does Walmart sell fertilizer for? Now, what's your upcharge? What's my convenience charge? What is it from there? So for your customers, what's their base rate charge? If you're an accountant going into tax season, I have to compete with $49 TurboTax Online and justify my price from there. I'm going to skip the next video here for framing, but we want to look at, no, we better watch the video. It's going to make more sense, sorry. If you want, turn on video too. If you guys can wait here for just a minute, it's only a 3-minute video. Oh, it's a 5-minute video. I'll cut it short at 3 minutes.
When people are like, oh, well, this is so great, it won't cost hardly anything, like, there's got to be a catch. There's always a catch.
In any kind of decision-making, context counts. The simple reframing of a situation or a question can produce a totally different answer from the same person. For example, people would rather buy a hamburger made of meat labeled 75% fat-free than meat labeled 25% fat. In fact, when questioned, these people will tell you that the 75% fat-free burger tastes better than the 25% fat burger, even though the burgers are identical.
How an issue is framed is definitely one of the most important parts of when you're considering something.
Of course, when people are framing things, they're going to try to make it as good as possible. They're not going to show you the bad. They're not going to show you the negative.
2 minutes away from launch.
When NASA was deciding whether to launch the ill-fated Space Shuttle Challenger, Morton Thiokol's engineers at first opposed the launch on safety grounds. But when their general manager instructed the engineers to put on their management hats, he reframed the decision from one focusing on safety to one focusing on dollars and cents. The engineers then, unfortunately, changed their decision. We need to look beyond the obvious frame of reference in business, will this be a profitable decision, and consider our actions from a broader ethical perspective. Like, how will this look when it's reported on the front page of the newspaper?
So right now there's the big abortion debate in Washington, and I think that's a really good example of framing because you have two groups of people with noble goals. There are people that want to protect women's health and reproductive issues, but then there's also people that want to protect the lives of the unborn children.
When you have an issue explained to you, you have to examine how it's framed because people that are explaining issues to you are biased in themselves.
Decisions made by business people often occur in a context where subjective factors predominate, and the framing of an issue is particularly influential.
Okay, so let's talk about some examples of how can we frame our customers' decisions? Because a lot of times they're going in with, as Ryan talked about yesterday, this intrinsic need. And we want to frame a solution for them. Okay, perfect. So here are some ways that we may be able to help them frame their decision. We can do pre-framing. And if I could talk about the restoration company first, who is scared to death after a flood, right? What's going to happen to their house? What's going to come next? And now they're going to send in some people. To do what? To rip out walls? To rip up my carpet? To come look behind the fridge, to come look under the couch, to come move my bedroom, what's going to happen? Can you tell us what you guys do at Tobin Restoration, correct? To pre-frame my experience with you guys when you first come to my house.
Well, when a call comes in, I try to educate as much as I can, find out what the problem is. But until we get there, we don't know. So when my manager gets on site and tries to walk through and figure out what the problem is with the homeowner, and I think the biggest thing for us is education. I mean, when I think about, I don't know, what I got from that video is trying to compare myself and why you should call me instead of anybody else. We're all regulated by the same estimating system, insurance companies, everything. So really, we should be the same price if we have the same scope of work. So for us, it's just customer service and education and making sure that we have the customer at ease more than, freaking out and not knowing why we're tearing out walls. Because normally, that's what's going to happen.
And my anxiety goes down just hearing her say that they're going to send in a manager to come walk side by side with me and educate me on the process. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. Come on in, right? We may also want to look at their objections, be able to frame them as far as, is it a deal breaker? Is this something we can work with? What are your hot buttons? What are you looking for? So some people who do that really well are car salesmen, right? They explain to you really well why you need to buy that car and why you need to have it today. They're really good at finding what are your hot buttons, how can you get there, what can you do. Real estate agents are also really good at framing things into that desirable characteristics. It's not a small house, it's cozy, right? It's not way the heck out of town. It's country. It's a horse property. It's a house with that beautiful country vista. So we want to help them frame it into a desirable characteristic. The other people that are really good at this are the clickbait people. Those people on your Facebook page that these are the 5 secrets your doctor doesn't want you to know about your upcoming colonoscopy. I'm not getting a colonoscopy, but what is it that my doctor doesn't want me to know? Please tell me, right? I wouldn't click on that, but there's all these framing them, these are the things you've got to know. Here's 3 things you need to know. Here's 10 things your dealership doesn't want you to know. They're framing them into this cool, exclusive knowledge. Let me warn you, we do want to be careful on how we frame things. A couple of framing failure stories. One of them that came in my behavior economics books here was at a daycare. And this is one that's true to life for me. I grew up at a daycare where everybody had to come pick up their kids by 5:30. And if they don't pick them up at 5:30, it's a problem. Our family needs to get on with our life. Your kid is waiting for you. We have to send the teacher home. My parents are there watching your kid until you get there. So what can we do to get people to show up on time? Most people would say, fine them, charge them $15 if they're late. What's the problem with a $15 penalty if you come after 5:30? It's worth it. I can go get my dry cleaning done, I can go shopping, I can go run all those errands, and hey, I'll just give you $15, Jared, just keep my kids another half hour. We framed that option for them. And my family didn't do that, that wasn't our thing. But do you see how we can frame a problem? The Red Cross ran into a city. They, after a natural disaster, they had about 1,500 people in this one city doing blood donations every month, and they're trying to get to about 3,000 to meet their current need. Right now, what do you get when you donate blood? Orange juice, cookie, and a sticker. And they thought, man, we need this bad enough, we've got the funds, let's offer $25. If you come and donate this month, you'll still get your cookie, you'll still get your orange juice, you'll still get your sticker, and you get $25. How many more people do you think came to donate blood? Half as many as usual. Because why did I give blood before? I'm saving lives. I'm a good citizen. What happened during this promotion? Yeah, I'm selling my blood for $25. Is $25 to sell my blood and get a cookie worth an hour and a half of my day? No, but being a good citizen was. Saving lives was. So we want to look at how are we framing our decisions for our customers? Do you guys have any maybe insights or decisions, ahas maybe that came from that, Heath?
In a different company called All Around Pests and Trees, we also do insects, and one of the biggest things we do, termites up in the Island Park. So we get the same calls, people panicking, think their whole house is going to fall down. And then, you go in, you look at the wood, whatever. But one of the biggest things I find is one of those failures of insight stories is when people come in and say you have to have the whole house redone, the floors and everything else like that. And you go in there, one little piece of wood that big has termites. And so people who inspect termites are always like trying to tell you the bigger story because it's a bigger job versus how small it actually is. And in Island Park, we don't have that many termites.
Perfect. Yeah, and if you think about, man, I gotta go to the dentist, I gotta get some work done, they're gonna drill, it's gonna be pain, it's gonna, What if they instead framed it that we only have about an 8-minute procedure we're gonna need to do? What about if, we wanna simplify it, we wanna make it easier to digest, we wanna put it in as positive of a frame as possible, and want to help our clients make the best decisions. The last principle we wanna talk about is nudging. The idea of nudging is that a lot of decisions that our customers make, we can't legislate them into doing the right thing. We can't force them into doing the right thing. We can't punish them into doing the right thing. But maybe we can provide a prompt. Maybe a little nudge, a little help, a point in the right direction. Some nudges for a case lot sale. We've all recently seen case lot sales at the local stores. They've seen great successes going from Campbell's soup, 79 cents. In the study where they did this, the average customer bought 3.3 cans of Campbell's soup. They put up a sign that said, limit 12 cans per customer. What do you think happened? Yeah, the average customer bought almost 8 cans because they were nudged into, this is a good deal. So we want to think about what are some nudges, some cues, some not restricting people's options, not forcing them to do something, but maybe pointing out a better way, pointing out an answer. Let me share with you one my electrical company is doing with me, power company. Rocky Mountain Power says, my house uses significantly more wattage than all of my neighbors. We're a household of 9, and most of our neighbors are retired couples. Yes, we use considerably more energy, so don't judge me. That wasn't effective enough, so maybe they nudged me and said, hey, your neighbors are actually only spending this much money and you're spending a lot more money. Maybe, hey, here, let's make some recommendations. Because the power company is in the business of selling power, right? They're going to maybe help me do that a little bit better. Not forcing me, not giving me limits, but nudging me into making some corrective changes.
Annie, have you ever wanted to send them back a letter saying, all of the competing companies around you have their power on pretty regularly? Yours is off.
Right? Yes. But I live in Rigby. I have really limited power choices. So we just roll with it. Some other nudges that exist in my life. Everybody go earn one of these stickers. Go get one, wear it proudly. Right? It's a nudge. You want to wear your sticker, wear it proudly. This is a nudge my wife really loves. She accesses an app on her phone where she gets to use this, it seems like about twice a week. Where she knows at Hobby Lobby she can go get 40% off anything she ever wants. Any one purchase, and while she's there, she gets, nudged into a couple other things. We're going to start seeing signs like this in Idaho Falls. Our default setting in Idaho Falls is now no being on your phone while driving. Anybody here wear a Fitbit? While I was setting up for this, the lady after goes, man, you're walking a lot, you're getting all your steps in today. I go, I know, and I'm not wearing my Fitbit. None of it counts. I'm not even burning any calories, right? We all know somebody who's like, can you go get this for me? I don't have my Fitbit on. At night in our house, there's this little light steps. We start hearing at about 10 o'clock as my wife is 9,236, 9,237. She's getting her 10,000 steps. She's being nudged into better health by this little calculator that shows up on her phone, by the lights that appear on her wrist. It's nobody forcing her to make better decisions, but it's a nudge into a healthier decision. Defaults. A big thing we're seeing right now is defaults. Does anybody get clothes in the mail for you to just pick? The default answer for those clothes is, here, we sent you all of these clothes. You can keep them if you want them. If not, you can send them back. Subscription-based information, catalogs, automating things is becoming the answer. We are helping people make the correct choice and get to the correct choice. So think about how can you help your clients, your customers, get to the answer, not through forcing them, not through taking away choices, but by making the choice easier, by how you display your products, by how you show them. So as we're thinking about that, be thinking the use of behavioral economics is how we solve problems like that medicine. If 66% of people aren't taking their medicine right, do we need to legislate them that they have to take it right? It won't work. Do we need to educate them that when you go to the doctor and get a prescription, you need to take your medicine? No. But if you're a pharmacy, maybe could you send a text reminder that the prescription's ready? As a doctor, could maybe you have an automated follow-up nudge to make sure they're taking their medicine? What are those nudges? What are those thoughts? What are the heuristics and the frames that you can use to better help your customers? Thank you. Let's